So the way we could connect that is you have a very unique sound on your horn. You know, when I listen to the radio and one of your recordings comes up, if it's not a song that I've heard before, I can instantly say, "Oh, this is Seamus Blake." And what I wanted to ask is, how did you find your own voice on the saxophone that perhaps was unique, not so much the same as someone you would listen to before? Because it is a trap that a lot of jazz players fall into, is sounding a lot like one of their influences.
Mm-hmm. I mean, well, I think one thing that helps is to have diverse influences, not just a couple strong influences. I mean, if you're a guitar player and all you do is listen to Pat Metheny and all you do is learn his solos and stuff, you're going to sound like Pat Metheny. So, you know, one is to be open and listen to different things, and then be conscious also of your influences. You know, if you are aware that you sound a lot like one guy, maybe you're okay with it, and some people are, but maybe you don't want to play like that guy, and so maybe you have to go through a period of kind of purging some of those things. I mean, I learned all the standard Coltrane kind of licks that, you know, people learn, you know, and I played them a couple of times, but, you know, I'm probably gonna choose not to play that because it's so associated with him, you know. If I come up with something as good, that remains to be seen. Probably not, but at least it's something maybe different, you know. I think also it just takes a while too, you know. Like, I don't think you can rush it. I think my idea of sound is probably influenced by not just saxophone. Like, I listen to singers a lot. I listen to guitar players. I listen to, synthesizers. You know, I'm interested in different things. So perhaps those things influence. You know, I think there's a certain quality, like a basic good sound there's a couple of different kind of styles of a basic good saxophone sound. One is kind of sort of the more Lester, airy Stan Getz. You know, Joe Henderson had a little of that too. There's kind of that airy thing, and then there's a kind of resonant Dexter Gordon, Coltrane kind of thing. And sometimes I kind of flip between the two of them, you know, a little bit. But I mean, I would say that I have a lot of influences, and you can notice some of my influences. But it's maybe a bit like if you're making like a soup, and you have all these different ingredients, and you put, some carrots and zucchini and some chicken and blah, blah, blah. You put all that in. And in the beginning, when you taste it, you can taste each individual ingredient separately. You're like, oh, okay. And then after it's cooked for enough time, you stir it and you nurture it and you cook it, then it becomes one more whole. The flavors merge and it becomes this one entity. And I think that's sort of what the way style kind of happens. I mean, some people are freakish and they have a style right from the very beginning. And then some people are more, it takes longer and the style comes later. It's something that you just kind of, it happens kind of gradually, but you're kind of, I think you have to be aware of it. Sometimes it's what you don't play is determines who you are. You know?
I love that cooking analogy. That's really neat. So I looked at your touring schedule, and you'll be playing in Russia this weekend. I mean, that sounds very exciting. And it looks like you also do a lot of playing in New York, where you're currently living. What kind of lifestyle do you prefer as a musician? Because it seems like you're doing both sort of the touring, but also playing along, like a lot of the
I would
home
say
front.
I'm more touring than I am playing in New York. In a way, I wish I could play a little bit more in New York, but touring there's better money in touring, and so I although it's a little bit harder, just traveling a lot, and it can be hard if you have a family or anything, or it can be hard also just sort of physically, just being tired and stuff. And traveling, as you probably know, like flying these days is not as glamorous as it maybe was in the 50s or whenever flying was glamorous, if it ever was. I don't know, but I mean, flying kind of sucks, and and lines and waiting, and you spend a lot of time, just kind of, stuck in a seat and that. But the payoff is that you get to meet people all over the world, and you get to see. It opens your eyes. You learn about the world. You see different ways of living. You see different cultures, and that's really a great opportunity, and I'm grateful for that. So, I mean, I would like to stay around a little bit more in New York. I wish that I had more gigs in town in a way so that I could just be at home a little bit more, compose more, you know, practice my, you know, piano or guitar or something, or just play with my studio toys more, you know. But, yeah, I'm mostly on the road.
Do you tend to find it hard, like more of a challenge to get practicing done while on the road? Like, well, I'm a trumpet player, and I have mutes I could use if I was in a hotel room or something. But
it is tough, actually. Well, one thing that helps me is having an iwi. I bring an iwi sometimes. Well, in the last couple of years, I've brought an iwi on the road, and I practice that. And the fingerings are fairly similar, so the fingering kind of stuff pays off. So you can kind of practice ideas. And before that, I used to bring an acoustic guitar on the road a lot, and I would practice that. And so, you know, it is nice to have something in the room, you know, because I tend to feel guilty playing my saxophone in a hotel room. I don't often do that unless I'm really, really desperate. I'll play a few notes to test a reed or something. But generally, I feel like it's too loud and I'm going to, you know, disturb people. So, but having some quiet alternatives is always good, you know.
Yeah, well, you're a very conscientious person. Do you find a lot of support for jazz abroad? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of support for jazz in New York City, but when you're in these other countries, do you find
yeah.
that?
I mean, I think jazz is more popular outside of the United States than it is here, you know. With the exception of like a few places in the States, jazz is, you know, pretty much minority music, you know. I mean, yeah, especially certain places, you know, Japan, they love jazz over there, and most of Europe, you know, they're pretty into jazz, all over Europe. I suppose it's that kind of same old story that you're kind of more loved when you're from somewhere else than when you're actually, you know. I have that same problem, and sometimes in Vancouver, like sometimes it's hard for me to get a gig in Vancouver where I'm from. You know, but I can get one in Tokyo, you know. So if that makes any sense, you know. So maybe, you know, jazz it's not as popular in the United States because it's from here. It's not as exotic or something. I don't know. Or it's sort of viewed as kind of stale or something. I mean, that's not entirely true. I mean, there is a young, you know, there's always a scene. There's always a vital young scene playing jazz and keeping it going. But it's relatively small in comparison to, you know, rock and pop and whatever the current trendy dubstep. Is that the new style of music that's popular?
Yeah, lots of rap and
Skrillex,
reggae
yo,
and pop.
props out to Skrillex, my man. Yeah, sometimes I try not to think about it though in those kind of terms. I don't think about something in terms of how popular it is, or I like music based on, I mean, I have I'll be embarrassed to admit, but I guiltily will, like, you know, listen to Miley Cyrus, like for, you know, like a good, like 4 or 5 minutes, I'll listen to like the whole song and go, that's kind of a cool song. I like that. And I'll appreciate whatever the synth part on the chorus or something like that, you know, and then I'll like put on some, you know, some Coltrane or something and go, wow, Train is, you know, wow, that's deep, that's so deep. And then, you know, switch to something else. I mean, I'm pretty erratic with my tastes, you know, but you know, it's just all music, I guess. So if jazz isn't as popular in the United States, maybe it's okay, you know. I mean, there's still plenty of good music coming from here anyways.